Hi, good evening. Welcome along to the Transfer Show on a day of developments in Manchester United's pursuit of Brian Mbeumo and Chelsea's push for a new #1 goalkeeper. Well, our reporters, Kaveh Solokol and Mark McAdam, are the men in the know to bring you the very latest stories, which also include an update on Luis Diaz's future as Liverpool reject a bid from one of the top clubs in Europe. Plus, the Manchester City rebuild shows no sign of slowing down. We'll bring you an interview with their target, Ryan Aitnuri. Right, we're going to start with the news that Kaveh broke about 20 minutes ago on Victor Osimhen. Give it to us again, please.
Well, look, Al Hilal have made an offer to Napoli for Victor Osimhen, who's widely regarded as being one of the best strikers in the world. This offer was worth around £55 million. Now, according to our colleagues at Sky Italy, Napoli have just rejected this offer. And their position is that if Al Hilal want Osimhen, they need to pay the release clause, which is around £63 million. Now, we're expecting Al Hilal to go back in with an improved offer of around £59 million, but I'm not sure that is going to be enough to get him. He's got a year left on his contract. He's 26. He spent last season out on loan at Galatasaray. And Sky Italy are also telling us that he hasn't agreed personal terms with Al Hilal either. But they're willing to offer him £22 million a year, tax-free. That is about £425,000 a week.
Let's be honest, you're not getting out of bed for that, are you? All right, so there's been further developments with Mohammed Kudus today that you brought us earlier. Give us that one as well.
Well, look, Chelsea have been offered Chelsea have been offered the opportunity to sign Mohammed Kudus from West Ham. Now, they haven't said no yet. I think they're considering whether to add him to their list of attacking targets. They're going to consider whether he is a player who they are interested in signing. He's somebody, of course, who 2 years ago, West Ham signed from Ajax for £38 million. And he had a really great first season in the Premier League, played really well under David Moyes. But I think West Ham have realised that they had a really, really disappointing season. They need a rebuild. They need to raise funds. And I think pretty much they would listen to offers for any of their players, probably apart from Jared Bowen or Aaron Wan-Bissaka, because they need to have a rebuild. So he has been offered to Chelsea.
I have to say I'm surprised because I think he's a player. Don't you think that?
Yeah, I think he's quality. I don't think he was at his best last season, but he's one of those Maverick-style wingers that can open the door, he can make something happen from nothing, he can just do something or nick a goal and change the dynamic of the game, and he's got that ability to carry the ball up the pitch as well, and that's something that can be crucial in the Premier League. Really good on the transition, but like Kaveh says, this is a funny window where there are a lot of clubs that are trying to rebuild, and they have to recycle money, and they have to find money, and they have to raise money, and that means sometimes selling maybe one of your best players to try and get 2 or 3 more in.
Yeah, indeed. We were talking earlier as well about Chelsea and a possible top goalkeeper. Give us some more on that.
Well, actually, you know what happened during the discussions about Mohammed Kudus with the possibility of him moving from West Ham to Chelsea? During those discussions, Robert Sanchez was brought up about potentially moving from Chelsea to West Ham. Now, I think this would make sense in a lot of ways because we know West Ham are looking for a goalkeeper because Lucas Fabianski has left. And Robert Sanchez has worked in the past with Graham Potter, the West Ham manager, when the two of them were together at Brighton. Now, could Robert Sanchez leave Chelsea? I don't know. I don't think they're actively trying to sell him. But of course, we know that they are interested in signing Mike Maignan from AC Milan. Now, he's another player who's been offered to them. France #1 goalkeeper. He's about to be 30, but that's not too old for a top-class goalkeeper. The issue is valuation. Milan want £25 million. Chelsea think he's worth more, closer to £10 million, because he's got a year left on his contract. And he has said to AC Milan, I want to move to Chelsea. and I'm not going to sign a new deal. And if I don't move, I'm just going to stay here and my contract will run out and I will leave on a free transfer next summer. I think if Chelsea do sign a goalkeeper, it's likely to be before the end of next week when they fly off to the US for the Club World Cup.
Mark, how many goalkeepers do Chelsea need? Because Kepa's come back as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, so obviously
Kepa out 75.
Yeah, he was, a hugely expensive goalkeeper at the time. Another one that was paid big money. One of the reasons why they were able to facilitate that loan deal to Bournemouth from Chelsea last summer was because he had 1 year left on his contract, but renegotiated and signed a 2-year deal with a release clause. So it enabled him to go out on loan. He goes back to Chelsea this summer, and then effectively they can sell him and raise some kind of money for the money that they invested in him in the first place. He had a really strong season down on the South Coast, was outstanding for Andoni Iraola at times, pulled off some really good saves and was a part of a record-breaking season. It was the best Bournemouth defence they've ever had in the Premier League by some distance. They conceded, I think it was about 43 goals over the entirety of the campaign, where their Premier League record was 61. So Kepa very much a part of that. And like you talk about all of these goalkeepers that Chelsea have, and one of the fascinating things about last season was Robert Sanchez was the Premier League goalkeeper, played 32 Premier League games, only once in the Europa Conference League. But it was Philip Jorgensen that played vast majority of the Conference League matches. So they very clearly had two different goalkeepers. But I think if you were to spend a bit of time working out how many they've got, it would probably almost get into double figures.
All right, I want to get to Liverpool.
To be fair to Chelsea, though, I know a lot is made of how many goalkeepers they've got, but they've got two goalkeepers they used a lot last season, one in the league, one in Europe. They've got a goalkeeper out on loan at Strasbourg, who's their parent club, sister club, who's done very, very well. They've got Kepa, who was on loan at Bournemouth, a goalkeeper they inherited from the previous owners. The other goalkeeper they have is Mark Penders, brilliant young goalkeeper, Belgium, who's supposed to be the new Thibaut Courtois. They signed him last summer, £20 million from Genk. He stayed out on loan at Genk. So I know the headline is Chelsea have got all these goalkeepers.
Which you know I'm going to use.
But if you actually break it down, it's not that many when you consider they've got a parent club in Strasbourg, they've got a hot young prospect who's getting experience in Belgium, and they've got a goalkeeper they inherited from the previous regime, who's a very, very good goalkeeper, as he proved at Bournemouth.
Carve Solokol, the voice of reason. All right, well, listen, we're going to go out to Spain because we're going to talk about Luis Diaz, and Rob Dorset, our football correspondent, is there. So, Rob, what is the latest on Diaz?
Well, it's a significant headline, Mike, isn't it? Liverpool, we understand, have rejected an approach from Barcelona for Luis Diaz. And I've been talking to some of the Spanish media out here and some Spanish contacts, and they've made it pretty clear to me that Barcelona aren't easily giving up on this one. He's been a long-term target for them and remains so. They really want a left attacking player on that left wing, and Diaz fits the bill perfectly for them. Plays wide left, scores goals, creates chances, and I think he's got that flair and personality that Barcelona think would fit well into their side. But pretty clearly Liverpool don't want to engage on this discussion at the moment. As far as they're concerned, Diaz is not for sale. He's still got 2 years left on his contract though, and that's what's really interesting for me, because I think it's getting to decision time for Liverpool. They won't want him to go into the final year of his contract, because we've just seen what's happened with Trent Alexander-Arnold and the possibility for him leaving for nothing. They won't want that to happen for Diaz, even though he's 28 now. So they're going to have to start renegotiating with him on a new contract if they want him to stay. But Diaz is also on the radar of Al Nassr in the Saudi Pro League. He was at Nottingham Forest as well. I don't think either of those are going to happen for him. I can't see Liverpool selling to those. But I've been asking some of my Spanish contacts out here, why did Barca want Luis Diaz? Bear in mind they've got Robert Lewandowski, Lamine Yamal, Rafinha, Dani Olmo in those attacking positions. It's arguably the best attacking four in the world football right now. And it's been explained to me that crucially none of those play wide left, and that's what they're after. And that's what Diaz offers. But if they can't get him from Liverpool, if that is an absolute no-go, then they're going to have to look elsewhere. And my sources over here are saying to me that Marcus Rashford is still very much on Barcelona's radar. Wages may be a problem for Barcelona to pay in terms of Marcus Rashford. So Would Manchester United consider another loan deal for Marcus Rashford to try and reduce some of those wages? I think that's much later in the window if we get to a discussion about that. And then there's Nico Williams, who's another option for Barcelona, wide left. He's at Athletic Club, of course. Now, he's got an achievable release clause, believed to be about £55 million. But again, he's on huge wages, which I'm being told might be beyond what Barcelona can afford to do. And Williams has said himself that he wants to stay in Bilbao because they've got Champions League football next season and he wants to be part of that. So at the moment, Barcelona, the huge club that they are, aren't having a lot of joy with trying to get a left-sided attacker. And the latest news we've heard today is that they've had an approach for Liverpool's Diaz turned down. So we'll see whether they can try and pursue that one, because at the moment Liverpool aren't engaging on it at all.
Yeah, I want to stick with Luis Diaz, Rob. So I know that he's spoken today. What's he had to say?
Well, listen to this, Mike, 'cause I think this is interesting. We know there's rules within football that clubs can't approach players or even their representatives to discuss deals if those players are already under contract somewhere else, unless they're in their final year of the contract and it gets to January, etc., etc. Well, he talks pretty openly about this, Luis Diaz. Let's show you what he said. He says, crucially, I'm very, very happy in Liverpool. There's no anything to doubt there. He says, from day one, they've made me feel very welcome. Right now, we're in contact with them because we're speaking with other clubs. He means him and his own representatives there. He says that's normal, the market is open and we're trying to sort out what's best for us. I'm just waiting to see what happens. If Liverpool doesn't make a good offer, I still have 2 years left with them. I would be happy and content to stay there, and that's it. Everything depends on them, obviously, but it's up to me to decide what's best for us and the future. So I think there's a little bit of ambiguity there in what Luis Diaz has had to say. I don't know how Liverpool will feel about those comments that he's made, but at the moment, Liverpool's position is very, very clear. They don't want to sell Luis Diaz. They simply don't want to engage with Barcelona or anybody else about an issue that might involve him moving away from Anfield.
Rob, I know you're going to stay with us throughout the programme, but for the moment, thanks ever so much. Carve, let's talk Diaz then. 2 years on his contract. Are we at the situation where he either gets a new contract or he leaves?
I mean, that's the way it normally works in football. A club as big as Liverpool with an asset like Luis Diaz, you don't want to get into a situation where he's running down his contract. Having said that, we've seen Liverpool with the situation with Mohamed Salah, Virgil van Dijk, Trent Alexander-Arnold this season. They managed to get pretty close to the end of their contracts and they kept hold of Salah and Virgil van Dijk. I think the Luis Diaz situation is a bit of a complicated one. I think there's lots of different ways of looking at it, because what we were told about a month ago was that his representatives were going to sit down with Liverpool after the season ended to talk about the possibility of a contract extension. But I'm not sure that's the way Liverpool see it. I think perhaps Liverpool see it as a case of he's got 2 years left on his contract, he's playing well, he's a Liverpool player, let's see you for pre-season. But obviously, behind the scenes, I think the situation is that he's not one of the highest paid players at Liverpool. Perhaps he feels he's been left behind when other players are getting new contracts. And in the back of his mind, of course, he's got this enticing prospect of playing for Barcelona. So perhaps that is what his representatives are trying to do, keep all their options open. And if there's a possibility of going to Barcelona and Liverpool get a great offer, who knows, they may consider it, especially if they're considering making even more changes to their forward options.
Well, on that, Florian Wirtz, we know Liverpool want him. Does it make sense for them then to get rid of Luis Diaz?
It doesn't make sense to lose a player that's essentially a first-team starter before they've got a replacement in. I think Liverpool are quite relaxed in this situation. They're never going to attack the window and say, yeah, he's for sale, we don't want him, he's available. Because straight away the buying club will say, well, OK, they don't really value him that highly, so therefore we can go in with a low offer. Whereas if Liverpool have the stance of, no, this is a player that's a key part of our first team. We see him as a big member of this Liverpool squad moving forward. So therefore, we would reluctantly listen to offers. Straight away, those buying clubs know, well, actually, we can't go in with a low ball offer because of the noises that Liverpool have made. In terms of the Florian Wirtz deal, this is a huge deal. I know a lot of Liverpool fans are saying, well, on social media I saw last week that it was all done and dusted, it was going to be 48 hours, it was going to happen, and yet here we are, probably, 6-7 days into this window and probably 3 or 4 weeks into this conversation, and still nothing's happened. Talks continue with Bayer Leverkusen. He's still very much on their radar. The key thing is the player is desperate to join Liverpool. He's made the right noises. So it's just a case of finding a little bit of common ground between what Bayer Leverkusen want, which we understand to be 150 million euros, and what Liverpool's last offer was, which we think was about 130. So there's not a huge gap, but that conversation continues.
So, Liverpool working on Wirtz. We know they're working on Kerkez. How close is that one, Mark?
Do you know what? My phone just went off. So, no, nothing more in terms of detail there.
Hello to your mum for me, though.
No, that wasn't my mum. That was a contact that may provide some information there. My mum loves you. You know that, Mike.
Well, she's a good judge.
So, no developments there. Again, this is a very similar situation. Carve said it in the show at 5 o'clock. People are expecting things to happen overnight. These are big deals. These are complex deals. We know that Liverpool are interested in Milos Kerkez, but as of about 30 seconds ago, no contact, no formal contact to Bournemouth at this stage. So you'd have to say that whilst there is interest, at the moment, it remains interest.
OK, all right, we're going to take a break, so give you time to phone your mum and tell her why you haven't been in touch. All right, when we come back on the transfer show, we're going to talk Manchester City. What's going on with their summer rebuild? Well, they're busy, and what does it all mean for Super Jackie Grealish? See you in a moment. Hello again. This is the Transfer Show. Right, let's get to the very latest on Manchester City and their summer rebuild. Ryan Aït-Nouri, Tijani Reinders and Ryan Cherki are all targets. Well, here's what Aït-Nouri said about his future today, whilst on international duty with Algeria.
Non, pour l'instant, je me concentre sur la sélection. Le plus important, là, c'est les 2 matchs. Après, on verra comment ça se passe. On verra comment ça se passe. Ah, franchement, je ne sais pas du tout. On verra. Le plus important, là, c'est les matchs. Les 2 matchs à jouer avec la sélection. Moi, je me concentre sur ça et on verra après. Par la suite. Ouais, tout le monde sait, c'est un très grand coach. Après, comme j'ai dit, ouais, là, le plus important, c'est de se concentrer.
Ryan Aït-Nouri there. All right, how close is this one, Carve?
Very close to being agreed. Manchester City will pay around 40 million euros, which I think is just shy of 34 million pounds. He's a very good left back. We know Manchester City have been looking at signing a left back this mini window. They're also looking very closely at Milos Kerkez at Bournemouth. But I think Pep Guardiola has decided that Aït-Nouri is the player he wants. And he's done really well at Wolves. He's been at Wolves for 4 seasons. He's always a standout player whenever I watch Wolves. So I think he could be a really, really good signing for Manchester City. I was reading somewhere that City haven't signed a sort of out-and-out left-back for a long, long time.
Is it Mendy?
Benjamin Mendy, I think it was. I mean, Guardiola can play left-back, but he was signed as a centre-back. So I think it's good news if you're a City fan, because they believe that's a sort of weakness in their squad that's now being addressed.
Yeah. What about Reinders and Cherki, Mark?
Yeah, 2 players very much on the radar of Manchester City and Pep Guardiola. Some good news on Tijani Reinders. Deal agreed with AC Milan. This is a player that was voted the best central midfielder in Serie A last season. Brings goals and assists. City were looking for that key role, really, to link between Rodri and the front 3. It's going to cost them around £46.3 million plus add-ons, so another sizable investment from Manchester City. He's going to sign a 5-year deal as well. And then on the other player, Ryan Cherki, the 21-year-old from Lyon, he's a right winger, another position that they're looking to strengthen in. He's got just 1 year left on his Lyon contract at the moment, and Lyon and Manchester City are currently in talks. That one not as advanced as Ryan Aït-Nouri and Reinders, but certainly another player on the radar. And that's what now I'm thinking 8-9 players that the club have signed since January, the investment over £250 million. And the chairman has said they want all of their business, or the majority of their business, done before the Club World Cup. So they're making moves in the window, that's for sure.
They are, but is this going to please Pep? Because yes, he's getting players in, but he was grumpy that he was having to leave 5 players at home on match days. So with that said, what does all this mean for Jack Grealish?
I mean, first of all, I've got to say I'm a fully paid-up member of the Jack Grealish fan club.
And me.
And me. I feel like I need to just...
Let's hope Jack's watching. Yeah. So, look, I think it's sad what's happened at Manchester City over the past couple of seasons, really, because he hasn't been getting as much game time as he feels he should. And it really cost him his place in the England squad for the Euros last summer as well. You know, I spoke to a lot of fans out there in Germany last summer. They were looking forward to seeing Jack Grealish because he's a big name, he's a big superstar. He's got lots of fans around the world, and he's just not playing at Manchester City. I don't know what the issue is between him and perhaps Pep Guardiola, but he's going to be left out of this squad to go to the USA next week. His representatives are anticipating, I assume, that they will have lots of offers for him, especially towards the end of the window. The issue is he's got 2 years left on his contract. He's a City player. If he has to, he'll fight for his place. If he's told, we've got this offer, will you consider it? I'm sure he'll consider it with his representatives. But you have to remember, he's a £100 million player. He's on big wages, supposedly £300,000 a week. There's not that many clubs who can afford to pay that. So I wonder if it's going to be a case that he will leave City towards the end of the main window, perhaps on loan. I think, personally, he's still got a lot to offer. I would love to see him moving to a club who are in the Champions League, perhaps in the Premier League or in Germany or in Spain or in Italy. And he's always got the option of Saudi Arabian clubs as well. because he's a big star in Saudi Arabia, and I know quite a few Saudi Pro League clubs would love to sign him. But if he was to go to Saudi Arabia, I don't think it would necessarily be the end of his England career, because look what's happened to Ivan Toney.
Exactly.
But I think he'd be a big, big miss for English football, because we need Jack Grealish to be playing regularly, entertaining. You know, we need entertainers.
Yeah.
And at Manchester City, under Pep Guardiola, he proved that he's not just an entertainer, because people said, how's it going to work out for him at City playing under Pep Guardiola? Is he going to be diligent? Is he going to be tracked back? Is he going to do what he's told? Well, he has, but for whatever reason, it's still not enough.
Well, the fact is, he has got to play because there's a World Cup coming, which means we can go back to Barcelona, speak to our football correspondent Rob Dorset, who's with the England squad. Rob, we're 12 months away from a World Cup. Grealish obviously wants to play in a World Cup. Is he on Thomas Tuchel's radar?
He's very much on Thomas Tuchel's radar, but look, I agree with a lot of what Carve just said there. For me, this is very, very simple. If Jack Grealish wants to play for England at the World Cup next summer, then he's got to be playing more football. And I think the only way he can do that is by leaving Manchester City. That's a pretty stark statement, but I think that's the reality we are now at. Look, the facts of the matter are that Pep Guardiola doesn't see him as part of his first 15, 16 players. He's not getting on the pitch very much. If you look at the stats, Mike, this is staggering. He's made only 7 Premier League starts all season for Manchester City, Jack Grealish. And this is the stat that really speaks to me. At the business end of the season, when Pep Guardiola was chasing Champions League football and trying to put his strongest team out every single week, Jack Grealish played just 4 minutes in City's final 7 Premier League matches. That says to me that Jack Grealish is not part of Pep Guardiola's plans. He's not in the squad for the upcoming Club World Cup. There couldn't be any clearer signals that Pep Guardiola is not seeing Jack Grealish as part of his first choice plans. And so what does Jack Grealish do? Thomas Tuchel has said that he loves Jack Grealish. I think he'd like to include him in England squad if he possibly can, but he simply can't justify it at the moment with the lack of football that Grealish has got. And the point is as well that England, remember, are spoilt for choice in those wide attacking areas. It's where England are strongest and have been for several years. Just on the left side of England's attack, they've got the options of Anthony Gordon, Marcus Rashford and Ebere Eze. I think you have to be blunt at the moment that Jack Grealish doesn't get in ahead of any of those right now. But if he's playing football regularly next season, maybe he's got a chance of doing that. And that's what he's got to absolutely believe. I think one of the key issues here is who can afford him. He's on huge wages at Manchester City. As Carve says, he's got 2 years left on his contract. So it's only the very biggest clubs that can probably afford to take Jack Grealish, even if that's on loan. And I think from Jack Grealish's point of view, there's an ego here, there's a pride here. He was a £100 million transfer from Aston Villa to Manchester City, the perennial Premier League champions, and it's not worked out for him. I can't see him wanting to go to, with all due respect, a middle-ranking Premier League club off the back of that. He'll want to go to a Big Six club. He'll want to play Champions League football. And so any deal that happens for Jack Grealish has got to suit Manchester City, and it's got to suit Jack Grealish as well. I think we're going to be talking an awful lot more about Jack Grealish as this window progresses. He's an absolute superstar. I think it's pretty clear that he's available and Manchester City would be prepared to listen to offers for him. There'll be an awful lot of clubs interested in him, both in the Premier League and in Europe, and as Carve says, in Saudi Arabia as well. But the crucial thing is who can afford him. And even those people that can afford him, even those clubs that can, is Jack Grealish prepared to go to those clubs to further his career from there? I think it's very much up in the air, Jack Grealish's future right now. I don't think he's enjoying his football. I don't think he's enjoying the situation he's in. I don't think he ever saw this situation happening. He's frozen out of the England squad. He's frozen out of the Manchester City team. Jack Grealish is going to be a story for the rest of this transfer window, unless and until he gets his future sorted.
Absolutely, Mark. Rob just mentioned him there, Marcus Rashford. Are Grealish and Rashford in pretty similar situations?
Yeah, it's very similar. This is the problem when you're a big star and you sign a big contract that has big wages. It means that there's only one place to go, and that's downwards. The only place to go financially is for less money. No one is going to beat the big money that you're already on. And we said this on yesterday's show. When you're a big star and you're earning big cash, you have so few options. You can only really go to a very small handful of clubs unless you're prepared to take a massive pay cut. Or your football club, your parent club, is prepared to do a lot of the heavy lifting with regards to your salary to make things work. We saw it with Marcus Rashford, rumours that Manchester United were paying 50% of his wages to enable him to go to Aston Villa. The same with Jadon Sancho, the same with Raheem Sterling. There are a number of players that went out on loan at the back end of the window just to go and get some game time and get some football because they were never going to get the minutes on the pitch at their parent club. And Jack Grealish very much in a similar situation to this. So the price for Jack Grealish will be one thing, but if he's still at Manchester City after the Club World Cup in pre-season and as the season starts, the price might be very different and Manchester City might be prepared to make up some of that money to facilitate a potential move away. You could see Jack Grealish going on, as Rob said there, maybe late on in the window, possibly on loan.
You know what, as well? If he does leave Manchester City, I think he can leave with his head held high.
Well, he's got a lot of medals.
7 major trophies.
Exactly. He's won 3 titles. He's won the treble. There are a lot of world-class players who've played in the Premier League for a very, very long time, some of them for their whole career, and never won the title. Whatever people say about Jack Grealish, he's won 3 Premier League titles.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to go back to Spain because Arsenal could pull off one of the biggest coups of the summer. That's coming, and we'll also reveal which European club is interested in signing Anthony from Manchester United. That and more to come on The Transfer Show. Hello again, this is the Transfer Show. We're going to focus on Arsenal now and their interest in Real Madrid's Rodrigo. Mark, how much of a statement would that be to get Rodrigo in the door?
Just read that and have a look. No, this is live TV, and we have got lines coming into us all the time that we're trying to investigate whilst we're on air. So, yeah, to answer your question, Mike, Rodrigo...
Got this your assistant to look at that, I like that.
Well, I'm going to talk, he's going to work. No, this could be...
You know what happened, actually? Somebody sent me that message, and I said to them, can you send it to Mark, please? Because he's the one doing Arsenal. So it's good, actually. I think you should read it first.
Should I?
Yeah.
Read it first. Hang on a second. Let's do this.
Let's do Rodrigo, and then we'll get to that news.
Now, Arsenal fans are crying out for those big marquee statement signings, and we know that they're desperate for players in those attacking bursts. They're desperate for a striker, which we'll talk about a bit later on. They've been linked with Rodrigo, Brazilian international, 24 years old, currently at Real Madrid, scored 11 goals and assists last season in La Liga, and started, crucially, both of the 2 Champions League games where Arsenal knocked Madrid out of the Champions League. So they've seen him up close and personal. They know what he's about. And he's been really effective down that left-hand side for Madrid over the course of the last few seasons. The left wing is a priority, along with a striker. And the fact that they are being linked to these big-name players will get the juices flowing for Arsenal fans, because that's what they want. You know, Mikel Arteta has turned Arsenal from a team that gets into the Champions League, top 4 as an achievement, to a team that's nearly winning the title. Now, that big final step is the one they need to make. And players like Rodrigo could be those type of players that could just unlock the door for them to just go one step further.
Right, stop keeping us hanging. What's this Arsenal news?
Well, hang on a second. Can you give me permission to read this out?
It doesn't need my permission, does it?
Well, I don't know if we need to double-check things here.
Well, that's fine. You can read that out. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
The chief correspondent says yes.
OK, fine. Now,
go on.
And you're both more important than me.
Wow.
A little bit of breaking news. Arsenal are considering a potential deal for Chelsea's goalkeeper, Kepa, who is available on a release clause of £5 million. That's per some sources here at Sky Sports News.
Like that.
That could be an interesting one.
Yeah.
We know that Kepa has just been at Bournemouth. He's gone back to Chelsea. He has 1 year left on his deal. We understand that a part of that deal to take him to Bournemouth on loan, he signed a new contract, which included a low release clause, which would be £5 million, and therefore, potentially, if Chelsea don't see him in their first team this season, could be available at that kind of price. We know that Arsenal are in the market for a goalkeeper. They had Neto on loan from Bournemouth, funnily enough, who was involved, only played, I think, the 1 game last season for Mikel Arteta. So they are looking for a goalkeeper. Could Kepa be their man, who's already in London?
He'd be number 2, though, surely.
You would have thought so.
And is he going to want to do that?
But then teams like Arsenal play 60-plus games. So even if you're the number 1, as we've seen with Chelsea, you're probably going to start 40 games. As a number 2, there's a good chance you'll play 15 or 20 games because of the amount of cup competitions and, of course, the extra Champions League games. So, yeah, one to keep an eye on there. That's coming into us whilst we're on air, so we haven't had the chance to do the due diligence and speak to the right people. And if I get in trouble for saying that, I was given permission by Mike and Carve, and that's on the record.
I'm blaming on Mike.
All right. Listen, I want to go back out to Spain and bring our football correspondent Rob Dorset in, because let's heap him in with the blame. Rob, let's talk Martin Zubimendi. Now, should Arsenal fans be a little bit worried? Because he was asked about a move to the Premier League and he played it down before Spain played France. Should Arsenal fans be a little bit concerned?
I'm a little bit concerned about whether I can talk about Martin Zubimendi without checking with Mikel Arteta first. But listen, let's just do what we like now. Mark's put it out there about this latest line. So we can say exactly what we want, Mike, can't we? Listen, Arsenal thought they got Zubimendi. They thought it was a done deal, as far as I'm concerned. They agreed a fee with Real Sociedad, which matched the £51 million release clause that he's got in his contract. A week ago, we were reporting that only the final bits of the deal needed to be done in terms of his personal terms, his contract, and the final structure of payments with Real Sociedad. And then Zubimendi went and said that Xabi Alonso is his, quote, idol. and that was just after Alonso had taken the Real Madrid job. And so we know that created a lot of waves with Arsenal fans who thought, oh no, does this mean that Zubimendi's having cold feet right at the last minute? And of course, we all saw what happened previously when Liverpool thought they'd got Zubimendi, only for him to change his mind and pull out of the deal at the last minute. Well, look, I can give some solace to worried Arsenal fans right now. I've been talking to people out here in Spain, and there is a very strong feeling out here that Zubimendi is going to Arsenal. They've got their man, no problem, is the way it was described to me. The deal is all but done. And it was also pointed out to me here that both Mikel Arteta and Martin Zubimendi both come from the same town in Spain, Donasti, a little place in San Sebastian. And we think that Mikel Arteta, or certainly over here, they think that Mikel Arteta has used that to try and talk to Zubimendi and help persuade him to come to the Emirates. Almost, I did that, says Arteta, you can do it too. And Arsenal have had a history of success with Sociedad players, haven't they, of course? Mikel Merino, Martin Odegaard, they both played with Zubimendi at Real Sociedad as well. So I'm sure they've been talking to him about what it's like to play for Arsenal under Mikel Arteta right now. And I should add, from the Spanish perspective, that they are in the market for a defensive midfielder, a number 6. But here in Spain, the full expectation is that's not going to be Zubimendi. It's going to be Angelo Stiller from Stuttgart. And so it's only a conversation that seems to be happening in England right now. Fears that maybe this Zubimendi move to Arsenal won't happen. Here in Spain, they say, no, he's not going to Madrid. Madrid are instead interested in Stiller. He's all yours, Mikel Arteta. So I think that has to come as some relief to Arsenal fans this evening.
I bet it does. Rob Dorset, live from Barcelona. Thank you, Rob. Rob, we're going to take a break. When we come back on the transfer show, we've got the very latest on Manchester United's move for Brian Mbeumo. That's coming next. Hello again. We're going to talk Manchester United now and Ruben's Amorim's need for more goals in his team. Matheus Cunha, already part of the United setup, and they're working on signing Brian Mbeumo from Brentford. Carve, was the first bid for Mbeumo always going to be rejected?
Well, I think that's the way transfers work, isn't it? When Manchester United get a clear indication that a player wants to come to United and they decide to get in touch with his club and have initial discussions, they obviously have an idea from representatives about how much it will cost to sign the player, and they're not going to go in with a high offer. They will try and be sensible. You don't want to make ridiculous lowball offers. And I think the offer they've made is, what, £43 million plus potential going up to £53 million. I think our information here from our news desk was that Brentford value him at around £60 million.
So it's not far off, is it?
Not far off. And the window's only just opened. So I think the crucial thing here is we're seeing this in a lot of transfers. What do the players want to do? Florian Wirtz wants to go to Liverpool. Milos Kerkez wants to go to Liverpool. Ait Nouri wants to go to Manchester City. Reinders wants to go to Manchester City. Brian Mbeumo wants to go to Manchester United. So I think it will happen, but it will take time. And United are not in a rush. The window's open for, another 2.5 months. The season's only just finished. Good to see United, though, not wasting time. Last season was unacceptable. Big changes have to be made. Players are going to come in. Players are going to go out. Good to see if you're a United fan.
I need you to explain something to me, though. They've got Cunha through the door. They're after Mbeumo. They're linked with Gyökeres. How can a club that we were told were going to go bust by Christmas afford all these players?
I don't think anyone said they were going to go bust.
That's what Radcliffe said. Without his money, they were going to go bust by Christmas.
I think he said we're going to run out of cash, or... Well, I would take, with all due respect, he knows more about business and he knows more about Manchester United than I do. But Manchester United are a very, very rich club. They're one of the richest clubs in the world. They're a massive cash-generating machine. OK, they've fallen on hard times. OK, they've made some big mistakes in the transfer market and the kind of wages they've been paying players. But there's a fantastic blogger, Swiss Ramble. You can go to his website. He's got analysis of accounts of clubs all over the world. If you've got time, read his analysis of Manchester United's accounts.
Why are they making all these savings of people who work at the club, though?
I know. 450 people have lost their jobs.
That doesn't smack like a very, very rich club to me.
Meanwhile, players who are out of favour are getting paid fortunes. I understand all that. But the football business is a strange business. Manchester United are still very rich. Yes, they've got PSR concerns, FFP concerns as well. But I think they can balance the books. I think Ineos and the Glazers have a plan to change things around at Manchester United. But a lot of players will be leaving as well. I think it's smart business to buy players first and then deal with moving players out.
Players leaving. Is that Anthony?
Yeah, obviously one to keep an eye on over the course of this summer. We know that he went on loan to Real Betis, had a successful loan spell, got to the Europa Conference League final, looked like he was enjoying his football, looked like he was happy on and off the pitch as well. The key thing with regards to any potential departure of Anthony from Manchester United would depend, certainly to Bayer Leverkusen, would depend on the Florian Wirtz situation to Liverpool, because we know that if they lose someone like Florian Wirtz, they're going to look for that creative player that can play out wide or as a 10, and that's what Anthony can do. And if it were to happen, it would be the third time that Erik ten Hag has signed Anthony, first at Ajax, then at Manchester United, and then potentially again at Bayer Leverkusen. The only stumbling block is that Manchester United invested £86 million in signing Anthony, and whilst they're going to get absolutely nowhere near that kind of level of cash, they'll be looking to try and maximise any potential return so that overall loss is not as big as it's likely to be. So, yeah, one to keep an eye on, but that's heavily dependent on Wirtz going to Liverpool.
Carve, I'm being told you've got an update on Mohammed Kudus.
Yeah, just to go back to what we were saying, the situation around him is, I think he'll almost certainly leave West Ham this summer. I think West Ham need to bring money in to make funds available to Graham Potter to refresh his squad. Mohammed Kudus is somebody who costs £38 million. I've been trying to find out what West Ham value him at. They do have a figure. Unfortunately, they're not telling me. But I think that figure is double what they paid for him.
Really?
I think that's the value in today's market, and he's still only 25. I think he will end up moving to a Champions League club, a club who are in Europe. I think he himself is open to moving. He feels he needs a fresh start. I think the situation West Ham have got is when they're trying to sell Mohammed Kudus, say, for instance, he earns £100,000 a week. When they're trying to sell him, the clubs they're speaking to are offering them players in part exchange as part of the deal. So they're saying, OK, we'll buy Mohammed Kudus, but we're going to give you these 3 players. The problem is those 3 players are probably on £80,000 a week. If West Ham take those 3 players, that's 3 times 80, that's £240,000 a week in wages, which they can't do because they need to balance the books. So I think that is what they're working through at the moment. There is a lot of interest in Mohammed Kudus, but people are trying to, negotiate a good price. People are trying to put players into the deal as well. So it is complicated, but I was just on the phone to somebody who said to me, it will become much clearer in the next couple of weeks.
OK.
10 days, 2 weeks, there will be developments.
What do you think West Ham fans will make of the fact that a player who gets them out of their seats, West Ham are going to offload?
Well, they won't be happy. But I think West Ham fans understand the mechanics of the Premier League. The club is actually, the owners, the board, have invested very heavily over the course of the last few years in players. They've tried to sign the best they possibly can. They've invested in the squad. They've tried to go in different directions with head coaches. They've really tried to and compete, and that's resulted in a European trophy. However, it's so difficult to not only compete, but to sustain it and stay there and be competitive. You just have to look at Manchester United and Spurs this season in the Premier League to see where they finish, to see actually it's really difficult to continue that level. So if they need to sell some to reinvest and go again under Graham Potter, who's a new manager for them, then maybe that might be the right thing to do. Sometimes it's just about recycling cash and trying to find a way to rejuvenate that squad. We've seen Aston Villa do it. Didn't want to sell a lot of their players, but they had to because of PSR, but they did it and they managed to reinvest and bring new players in.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, we've run out of time, as we always do on the Transfer Show. Kaveh Solokol, Mark McAdam, thank you very much. We are back tomorrow. You know the times by now, 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock for all the transfer news. Coming up next, more on Russell Martin, the new Rangers head coach.